like to call the meeting to order. Would everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A couple quick housekeeping matters. We have one new member with us today, and that's Amy Cohen. We'd like to welcome her to the Police Commission. We look forward to working with you. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. I think I've included everything that we need. Does anybody have any additions or corrections or deletions?
Do you remember, I can't remember what I had asked you. There was something that we wanted to add to it, and I can't remember for the life of me what that was.
Yes, it was the bar owners.
The bar owners meeting.
It is there. Do you have your agenda?
Nope.
It was in the packet.
I'm not saying it wasn't in the packet, I just don't know what I do with it.
Is there extra agendas there?
No, but there's stuff there. Everybody had a packet of stuff in front of each chair. So are there any additions, corrections, or changes to the agenda that we see?
Make a motion, we accept the agenda as submitted.
Is there a second? Seconded by Steve Farina. All in favor of accepting the agenda? Say aye.
Aye.
Approval of minutes. I will tell you that I have read and glanced them, but unlike normal procedure, I did not take out the pen to it. I was pretty busy. So if anybody else has looked at and read the meeting minutes from last month,
Well, I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes from February 14th and the amended minutes of January 30th.
is there a second? Is there a second?
I was not at the last meeting.
Doesn't matter. You can second it.
Second.
All right. All in favor of accepting the minutes from February 14th and the amended minutes from the January meeting?
Aye.
Say aye. All right. Public comment. Is there any public comment? None. Okay, good. Chief, do you want to go through your report for us?
And we had one defensive action for the...
Take your microphone, please. Everybody has to suffer through.
Here's his own, Ira.
Yeah.
Here.
What?
Here's his own.
Be sure you get yours.
To begin my karaoke session, please.
Let's make it different with the microphones.
Closer. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? This is like a Verizon commercial. We have one defensive action report for the month of February. The defensive action was a 23-year-old male, 5'11", 145 pounds, small build. It was in regards to a fight in progress. When he didn't disperse and stop fighting, he continued, and an officer tackled him to the ground and took him into custody without any further incident. No injuries were reported. We have two accommodations, which are basically, we've received one from the New Paltz Middle School principal in regards to Officer Quigley, basically thanking her for her professionalism and how she resolved an issue with a student that was on the property that was not supposed to be there, coming from the high school. the matter was resolved and he appreciated her work. The second has to do with a woman in our community who suffered a minor stroke, and our department responded to her house to assist for the medical qual. She wanted to thank Officer Phil Kraus, who is a responding officer, for being there and his actions. She also wanted to continue to say that that the officer gave her a hug as she was being treated by the rescue, and just wanted to say that she appreciates it, because very seldom does thank yous get relayed to the police department, which I think we're seeing more and more that we actually do, which is nice to see. But again, that was a very nice thank you for the assistance that we rendered. And that's all I have for the reports that we usually read.
Okay. I put the K-9 report underneath your thing if you want to talk about that, or just inform everybody about what that
Oh, the K-9
is.
grant.
Yeah, the K-9 grant.
Yes, through Cahill's office and through Department of Criminal Justice, we've received a $5,000 grant for our present K-9, which will include, it's a no-match grant. It's just funds that can be used for purchasing of equipment for the K-9, maintenance of the K-9, such as food, veterinarian bills, a bulletproof vest that we've been wanting to get for them. We didn't have a budget for it, so it's included in that, and different training materials and equipment for the officer that does the training as well. So we're happy to have been able to receive that.
Chief, where are we on the transfer of assets from the seized asset account to the K-9 account for this year?
I don't believe it was spoken about this year. I'm not familiar with any town board resolution or motion to transfer funds this year.
Well, no, what I'm asking is if you submitted the request.
No, I didn't.
Okay, because they won't do it, unless they're, unless they're asked to make the transfer.
Again, that wasn't spoken for this year. That was the last year where we discussed about transferring funds for the K-9 to be used for overtime for the
Oh, yeah, no, I just thought we were going to do it every year, because as long as we can do it, we might as well save the taxpayers money every year.
Yeah, we haven't discussed it yet, so that would have to be an item that we would discuss if we're going to transfer money again this year.
Okay.
Randall, can you put that on
For the
next month's
budget?
agenda? Yeah. No, on next month's agenda.
Okay. Bar owners meeting. I was invited to attend the meeting that the department has with the bar owners in the community, and it was very, very informative. I was actually quite delighted in the proactive nature of the bar owners. I mean, they were already planning for activities surrounding St. Patrick's Day, and they discussed, not making it a week-long festivity and starting the drinking early. The school was there to discuss ways in which they're informing kids about, binge drinking and so on and so forth. We talked a little bit about, I forget what the name of that, whatever they do with drink, drop and what they do to people's drinks.
Oh, no, we're talking about knowing.
Yes, that's it. That's it.
Keeping a safer eye on their drinks, so that they don't have.
So it was very, very. No, I don't know anything about drugs. I'm sorry. Yeah, I was in college when the earth cooled, so.
Well, you're also not a young woman.
Oh, yeah, true. True.
You don't have to necessarily watch your drink for something.
That's not necessarily true.
Oh, see?
Both male and female have to wash their
But
drinks.
I said necessarily.
Yes, sir. As long as we're on the same page.
And then there was some conversation about how sophisticated some of the IDs have gotten. So, the bar owners are being very vigilant about checking IDs, and they were asking, the chief was explaining to them where they're coming from, China, surprise, surprise. and ways in which they can be aware of them. And it was interesting that a lot of the bar owners talked about a lot of the little tricks that go on when kids pass around the IDs, and they walk in with one and then they give it to somebody else, and then they walk up to it. So I mean, it was good to actually sit down with them and hear their point of view as to the proactive steps that they're doing to make sure that they are mindful of making sure that they're not serving underage drinkers and things of that nature. So it was pretty informative. So hopefully I'll be invited back to the next meeting. That's that. Park Point, the first item on the agenda, and I'd like to give some context to it before we start the conversation. Last month, we generally talked about Park Point and the impact that it might have on the police department and its operations and its costs. And I thought it would be a good idea if the police commission sat down and discussed what it felt are issues associated with this project as it relates to the impact on the department. And we decided we would have a special meeting, which is why we're meeting today and not on our regularly scheduled period, to discuss this particular project and the impacts on the police department. In the course of last month's meeting, right after the chief got back from holiday, serendipitously he received an email from I think a consultant, to Wilma Wright, asking for a meeting, and he included me on that email. And I suggested that we not meet until we had an opportunity as a commission to talk about our concerns regarding the project and its impact on the police department. And I suggested to Wilma Wright that they would be welcome to participate in our meeting so that we could ask them questions directly. A few emails went back and forth. They originally indicated that they had some interest in participating, and I sent them a list of questions and concerns that we had talked about generally at our last meeting. And then I got an email back indicating that they were not going to participate, and that the planning board was the lead agency and that we should get all of our information from the planning board. That's fine. I just want to be clear that our purpose for participating in this process is to make sure that the police department is adequately protected as it relates to any funding that might be needed and any additional resources that may be needed as a result of this project. And it is important for me that we as a commission discuss the project, because when the chief needs new resources and new police officers, he doesn't go to the planning board, he doesn't go to the town board, he comes to the police commission. It is our responsibility to make sure that the department has the resources and the manpower that it needs. So it is important for us to participate in this process and be proactive and not reactive, because in the past I think we get caught behind the 8 ball. So that is why we put it on the agenda and decided to have this special meeting. When you came in, you had in front of you a number of different items, and I'll point them out so that you can follow what we have. I think it's the IDA. Is that what this is? This is a
No, actually,
this
that's their-
financial,
to be-
economic and fiscal. Yeah, is that what this?
Their financial statements.
Yeah, this came from the planning board. The Kelly gave
This is
us.
part of their planning analysis.
Their planning analysis? Okay.
So this was provided by Park Point.
Okay, okay. So you have this particular document, and this document is actually speaks to the impacts on public safety services. I've managed to highlight a few things on page 11, page 12, and page 13 that, you know, we can discuss. You also have, just for reference, but you all received this by email, the email correspondence, so that you know exactly what went on in the conversations and the emails that I had with the folks at Wilma-Wright. You also have in front of you a copy of their FAQ that came directly from their website. When they responded that they weren't going to come and talk to us, they sent me a link to the site, and I went there and I pulled that up. And then you also have in front of you the Park Point Housing Project FAQ that I believe that Mr. Christensen, who's president of SUNY New Paltz, presented to town gown members on December the 12th, 2012. And finally, because we're looking and most concerned with the costs associated with any potential need for additional resources, I asked our in-house accountant, Mr. Ira, to take a look at the costs or the potential costs or the estimated costs to the department, i.e. the town and the taxpayers, if in fact we were to hire additional police officers. And I asked him to extrapolate that one officer or those 4 officers or however many it's going to be over a 25-year period, although I don't know exactly what the length of the pilot might be. Is it 20 years? Is it 25?
25.
25 years?
25.
Okay. So we've costed out what it would cost the town, taxpayers actually, if in fact the chief is correct in assuming that we need 3 to 4 additional officers if Park Point is in fact erected. So the first thing I really want to start with is the fiscal impact analysis item that you have in front of you. And there are a couple of things that jump out to me as I read this quickly. And the portion on the police department is not terribly large, but it's interesting. Obviously, the first thing that jumps out is the fact that in this report it says that the SUNY Police Department will be the first responders for any issues arising at the project, and the project will be tied into the university's blue light system, which is the emergency system that follows calls to be placed to the SUNY Police Department dispatch. Then on page 12 it says the SUNY New Paltz Police Department responds to all calls that are initiated by the blue light emergency system and deploy a police vehicle to the scene. Then you jump down to the Town of New Paltz Police Department, the second paragraph. The project is located very close to the police station, so there will be a short response time should there be an emergency on site and the SUNY New Paltz police need assistance. And then there are indications that they had interviews with you, Chief, and oddly enough, it says that there didn't seem to be a need for additional staff, but that may be, I don't know if that's the conversation that you had with them, and after thinking about it some more, you got, I mean, and you can, I'm just going to go through these and we can, I mean, I'm not.
Well, I'd just like to touch base on that one real quick.
Sure.
If this is in regards to SUNY Police being the first responding agency and us being an assistant to SUNY Police. That's what this whole initial conversation was. If you remember, as we spoke about this and as the town even spoke about this, they were under the impression that they were going ahead and this was going to be a SUNY Police Department jurisdiction. And if that is the case, then obviously we don't need, a system like we do now. And maybe it'd be 20 calls, every couple months or whatever the case may be. If it is ours, which now we're told that this is our jurisdiction and we're responsible, that changes everything. I tried speaking about that matter when this was first discussed, and everybody said, nope, nope. They said that it's going to be SUNY's. And I said, well, I don't see anything in writing, but these are the facts if SUNY's handling it, and it's totally different if we're going to handle it.
Okay, okay. So basically, your conversation with them was on was their original set of assumptions, or what seems to be their assumption, that SUNY police would be responding to the calls.
Correct, and that's what it says in this report.
Okay. Then regular salaries of staff are not included in this analysis because no new staff will be hired as a result of the project, which again is based on their original plan. And then, of course, they go down here by multiplying the $19.16 variable cost per call by the estimated number of new calls each year, and calculating the marginal increase in overtime costs based on the anticipated increase in annual call volume. Camoin Associates estimates that the police department budget would increase by $2,739 as shown in the following table.
Randall, I agree with you in this thing. You got to remember, they're going to put this in a light that's favorable to them. They're not going to show you true figures. I mean, if you look at my figures, it's enough to blow your mind.
Yeah.
And mine is based upon us operating it, and it's based upon a low estimate because we don't have any new contract. So, I mean, obviously, I look at these figures from SUNY, and I look at, oh, gee, it's only going to cost $2,000. Yeah, cost you that on one call. I mean, if we pay that kind of money for one disturbance, as you saw the other represent, like in Zone 6, we pay that for, 1 month for zones, well, it's not even that. We pay that for one call to one bar in Zone 6. That's what it costs us, and that's a one-shot deal. $2,700 is an absurdity. Just my opinion.
In the emails that I sent off to them, there were a number of questions, because Ira and I sat down with the chief, and one of the things that we had asked for them, I had asked them to provide a number of things to us that I think were of interest to us, so that we could perhaps formulate some recommendations or have an opinion as to whether or not we're supportive of, adding any additional officers without any funds coming our way in order to do that, because I don't think it's fair that the taxpayer should subsidize this for free. I mean, it just isn't fair. But what I had asked them, if they were going to participate, I asked them for portions of the proposal that speak to the nature, volume, and frequency of emergency services envisioned for our police department. Any due diligence that shows an understanding of the challenges of police work in a college town, because that's something that we talk about frequently, because we're very different than a number of places. Assumptions made and used for the expected provision of those services, costs associated with potential additional personnel, training, equipment, and patrols, any information that supports the assertion that SUNY police would in fact respond to or be responsible for legal infractions or disturbances that might occur within this proposed development. Interestingly enough, checking the link and going to the fact, when when they indicated they were not going to participate, they sent the link, and I went to their site and looked at their frequently asked questions. And believe it or not, even though I'm getting old, their FAQ had in there still the provision that SUNY New Paltz was going to handle the calls. Like a dummy, I didn't print it out, and I go back to print it out today for us to have at our meeting, and guess what? It's no longer there. So,
Randall, if I may, I just want to bring up one more point about the number of calls. They're talking, as I believe from this thing, the number of calls required to go to the dormitory. Right? If we have 15 calls in 1 month to one bar, and we're going to add 600 or 700 more students, I don't see how they're coming up with any of these figures. I mean, it may be fine, even if UPD was going to handle it. That doesn't cover what we have to do once they get off campus and they start going to the bars. I mean, you got 600, I think is what the students are going to be, or something along that. 6, 7, whatever it is. They're going to be hitting those bars. And nobody tell me they're underage, because I don't care, and we all know that. They're still going to be hitting those bars.
The chief also wanted to get from them information related to arrangements that they had with other communities as it relates to the police department, and I was unable, in all the paper that you have in front of you, I was unable to find anything that would speak to that, and they didn't provide that either. So I don't know what to tell you with respect to that, but I can tell you some of this is very, very troubling to me, simply from a cost perspective. And, you know, Sergeant Butler was here last month and talked to us. He could only talk to us generally about his concerns as somebody who's out on patrol. But it would be, I think it would be important for you to relate to us and the community what your concerns are as the commanding officer for the department, what issues you have with the facility and the impact that it would have on the department, and what you think the costs might be in addition to the personnel type matters.
Well, you know, as we discussed in regards to this, you're talking about adding another 700 and some beds, which could relate to anywhere from 600 to 700 students. The impact that it's going to have on the community with the bars in the downtown area is definitely going to be an effect to us. You know, not to mention the calls and depending on, you know, you can have a apartment complex that you don't get a lot of calls to depending on the environment, but now you're talking about an environment that's, you know, college-age kids, which tend to lead to alcohol, fights, things of that nature. So I am anticipating on a increase in calls, especially with us handling this as us being the prime agency response. Not to mention that we also respond to medicals. We also have to talk about accidents. You know, it's another area with heavy traffic coming in and out. I know they say also that, well, a lot of them are going to be walking. Well, they're not all going to be walking into town necessarily. It's not that close to town. So it's not going to be just a, you know, step out the door and you're on Main Street. So that's going to be a concern. As far as the you know, the prediction, it's really unknown about how much of an effect it can be. As Butler probably said, you know, you have 700 kids. Are they going to be all on Main Street? Probably not. Are they going to be having parties, you know, that we're going to have to contend with there at the location? So it's, you know, when you think of the impact, then you might say, okay, well, what about one extra officer on a tour? If you talk about one officer on a tour, now you have 3 tours, we're 24 hours a day. So that's where we, in speaking with the supervisor, and we spoke about this in the past, you're talking about attempting to do that. You're talking about 3 to 4 officers, which would give us that extra person pretty much per shift to deal with these type things. Even if you eliminate the day shift, again, because of time off, you know, and rotations of a shift. So that's where we came up with the figure for the additional officers.
And we have three shifts, right?
Correct.
Okay.
We have a 4th shift that is used by a part-time officer that helps overlap a busy time, but that's not a full-time schedule. That's somebody that we plug in when need be.
Okay. If you take a look at the financial sheet that Ira put together, do you want to explain that and go?
If you want me to.
Go ahead.
Basically, I put this together, and I believe I'm underestimated because I put it together as conservatively as I could, because we really don't have any information other than 2011. So if you look at the first officer, first year, that's based upon what the old contract says a new officer has to get. And then for the next 6 years, those figures are what the contract says they have to get. Now, that's under the old contract from 2011. I didn't want to fudge around because I'd rather be I'd rather it be low, I mean, high, but not, ridiculously high where people are going to say this and throw the whole thing out, right? The overhead is based upon, again, the 2011 overhead, which I have calculated when I did some reports for the Consolidation Committee. I sat down and I got every employee in the town, okay? And that included all the police officers, got their actual overtime, how much, in other words, how much each one of these officers' benefits cost between the, medical, the employee advice, this thing, the FICA, the SUI, the compensation, the pension. And again, like I said, I'm trying to come up with some kind of reasonable averages, because we're going to remember in 2011 the pension went up 33%. But all I have is the figure for 2011, and I don't have the actual 33% increase. I was told it's somewhere around $1 million for 2012.
No, that was both entities.
That was what?
That was both. That was police and
everybody,
regular
right.
employees.
But for police and regular employees for 2011, Gene, it was 600 and something thousand. That figure I have for pension on that report that I did.
For police and the rest of the employees was about $1 million.
This year, in 2012?
Yes.
But in 2011, it was $666,000, with $300,000 go.
Cut that check in the end.
Yeah, no, I'm just, the point I'm making is I didn't use the third increase. I didn't, right, I just want to, I only can base my figures on something I know was actual, and then put my estimates based upon that. Because if you look into year, what are we here? That's year 7, which is after the mandatory increases that they get per contract. Then I started estimating how much they may get in contract increases, which again, only going by what the town board has been saying that they want to do. I mean, I could have put in 4% because we don't know what it's going to be, but I put in a reasonable percent increase and then increase the increase based upon those increases, because that's where your new base would be. I also took the overhead, which was at that time for 2011 was 48% of the police total, of the total police salaries. The total benefits for police came to 48%, but I increased it for 2012 because I knew we had the 30% increase in that. I know the town was working on stuff to reduce the cost of medical, and there's a whole bunch of things. And then we have the retirees that show up in a different area, because that's still part of the cost. Once a guy retires, he gets his benefits for however long the contract says. So basically, I used, what I thought were reasonable increases based upon the economy, and a reasonable increase in overhead based upon history. And that's how I came up with the figures. Now the first officer, that's the figure that would cost over the 25 years, $2.6 million for one officer. In order to extrapolate it out, all I did was just say, well, if it's going to be 2 of you, notice the thing, it says, if it's 2 officers, it's going to be double, if it's 3 officers, treble. So basically, if we have to hire 4 officers for the term of that, and it goes past the 25 years, by the way, because they may retire, and then we have to, it's a whole plus and minus and whatever, but if for 25 years, it's got to cost, according to my estimates, $10,583,000. That's what the taxpayers are going to have to pay. And I want to also point out that since the police is part of the A fund, the village taxpayers can't say this is a town problem, because it affects them too, this $10 million. I mean, even though the pilot program is in the town,
I don't think we're saying it's a town problem. I think we're
No, I don't mean it that way. I don't mean it. People say this is going into the town. It's a town problem, and I just wanted to be clear that it's not just a town problem, because this $10 million, assuming that my figure is fairly, close or whatever, that gets distributed amongst everybody. So, when they saw what's going into the town, it's like. It's not like Woodland Pines, which was strictly the village. And the village, and the town doesn't get involved in it, and blah, 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 and that pilot program, is really bad. But the point is, I just wanted to point out that even though it's going into the town, this particular pilot will affect everybody, and these costs will affect everybody. And if there's any questions about the figures, anybody wants to ask me a question about the figure, I'd be happy to try to answer.
Okay, I think that Ira did a very, very conservative. Very conservative.
Yes.
Because, frankly, I would have used a
Can you come to
3% COLA annually,
Uh-huh.
and I would have used an 18% increase.
Excuse me,
in
Jean.
the-
Take a chair, sit down.
Speak into the
Okay.
microphone.
Start over.
So, this is just my opinion, but seeing
Yeah.
as how lean you were, and you came out with $10,500,000, and I'm saying I think it's very, very conservative, because my knowledge of governmental affairs is that I would have budgeted for a 3% COLA regardless, and for each year, because you're talking about a unionized environment, and you never know if it's going to be 3%, 4%, 5%, 1%. So to be on the safe side, I would have put in the 3%. The New York State Police retirement system, I would have budgeted in at 18% annual increases.
That's a big, that I didn't,
That I would have done.
Yeah.
The
All right,
health
this is
insurance,
just-
I would have budgeted at an increase of 12 to 18% per year.
okay.
That's what I would have done.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, I think that the $10,500,000 is extremely conservative, but good job, Ira. I love
Good job for this wrong. No, I understand what you said.
I'm not saying
No,
it's wrong.
Gene, I was only
It's not
joking.
wrong.
I was only
Okay.
joking. No, the idea is, I did put 2.5% to 3%, that's for a certain period of time on the COLA, but I didn't increase 18% because it's again, it's an unknown factor, and I didn't want to have somebody come back to me and say, like it's been happening in other places, "Oh, what are you, out of your mind? It's $30 million. Your whole figure is wrong." And, I'd rather say it's going to cost us at a minimum $10,580,000. That's still a lot of money.
Okay.
Do you need a calculator, Gene?
No, I do not. Did I need one last night?
No, not
Okay.
just,
The other thing is this fiscal impact analysis that you gave us.
13.
No page. It's distributed by Wilmerite, and I believe it came out in their original Park Point GEIS. Since then, the town board and the planning board has asked for an independent fiscal analysis, okay? So this, besides the fact that exactly what you see in there is most likely untrue now, please don't go by that. And the other thing is that the town board has not forgotten that they were applying, the way I understand, to the IDA for a pilot program, but the way that I understood it was that first they had to apply before we could give the IDA our concerns. So as far as I know, the IDA is not allowed to move forward on a pilot yet because the town of New Paltz Planning Board is not resolved with the project. The project can't move forward anywhere because we're waiting for a fiscal analysis, and the planning board and the town board have concerns that they want addressed.
Well, let me, as the town liaison, what is or what would be most helpful, and I pose the same question to you as the village liaison. What I would like for the commission to do in really close coordination with the chief is to come up with some recommendations for both the town and or the village and the planning board so that you guys understand, and part of my angst about this is because I know that you all wrestle with the costs in the police department. And the police department is the piñata here when it comes to costs. And we totally understand that. But, you know, I just want to make sure that we're being upfront and honest with you about what our chief's needs might be if this goes through and they pay a pilot. And, you know, if he needs to have additional resources, you know, he'll come
Right.
here for us. And so I just want to make sure that if we're gonna do this, that there's going to be money somewhere, and we already know up front before we get there, and it's like, oh, wow.
Yeah, but before a pilot is done, or before the IDA starts to take it under consideration, what we should have are bullets, like bullets. And it's not just the police department, as you can tell, it's all of our public safety, all of our emergency services. So I would ask the chief, as you know, because like you deal with these people every day, the impact the police department as the lead agency, not that SUNY would be doing it, is that the impact, the additional calls, the same thing you said about, it's not just the additional bodies. It's about a lot of other things, like the medical calls. I know that police officers always go when the rescue squad goes, okay? That's things a lot of people don't know that. They figure the rescue squad goes alone. They don't know that you have to send an officer there, okay?
They use the first responders.
Right, so this is, that should be pointed out in a bullet, that on a sheet of paper, every time that the rescue squad's going there, the police department is already there.
Every time somebody burns a piece of toast, we're going.
Yes, well, right, okay, so that's police, but then there's also the fire department, there's the rescue squad. So all of those things, all of those agencies, if we could have bullets, the impact upon them, if cost factors, and apparently I am cheap, but apparently not as conservative as Ira. And believe me, there are plenty of people call me cheap.
Well, I'm just hoping.
That would be the kind of thing that could help and could potentially be integrated into the town of New Paltz's argument, statement's a better word, about the project, which, although I read a lot of stuff in the frequently asked questions that I don't necessarily believe, but
Like?
if that enrollment will not increase.
Yeah, really.
Come hither.
Their projection of enrollment in numbers is not going to increase, but their number of full-time students and students that are going, all right. Students that are moving from part-time to full-time has already increased and is continuing to increase. So their overall numbers are not increasing, but the number of people who are present on campus in the day-to-day are increasing. Also, you know, the staff and faculty needs are increasing, even though enrollment is not increasing. And so that's like in quotes for that reason. But to piggyback of what you were saying before, in terms of the fire department, for one thing, you know, we're coming up on this cycle of purchasing large items. And I've already spoken with the fire chief about trying to set up a meeting on those items specifically. Pilot or no pilot, there are things that this project will need, and I think it would behoove us to have this, since they said that the planning board is the lead agency and they turned down coming to this meeting, and I know that Tom Powers in particular has been vocal about the fire department. Maybe we should have the planning board host a meeting with maybe just one representative, maybe all of you, whoever would like to be there. Certainly, I think the two of you should be there, and the fire chief and representatives from the rescue squad, and have this very conversation with those projections present. Because was, and
Right.
Paul Brown wrote me a little note saying the truth will come out, and I think the truth will come out.
But not this one.
Right, oh, no.
The independent fiscal analysis that hasn't been done yet, because I think that you're going to find
Yes,
that it's markedly different from this one.
absolutely.
And hopefully, I think it's really telling that Randall went back online and that
And that was removed.
this information was removed.
Yeah, well, it's something
Okay.
that came up at the IDA meeting as well, and so that, I think, is a part of it. Also, at a student senate meeting, and I said this at the last police commission meeting, Chief DeGotkin told them openly, we will not be the agency servicing this place because we are not allowed to due to union contract. And, that was a through the grapevine thing, but that's on camera, so we could go watch those meetings if we so choose. And when I said projections, I meant the department's projections of what the needs would be, not this, I think that financial projection is.
Are they no longer working on that union issue?
They are still,
Or is it resolved?
it's not resolved.
It's not
It's
resolved, so they're
unresolved, yeah.
still working on it, okay. So there may be some hope.
Right, it's an as of right now thing.
Not looking very positive, but
Yeah.
5 years.
Because when they wrote this, and when they first were, this was first coming down the line, that wasn't part of the union contract. It was different, that was something that happened just last fall,
Right.
so.
Well, also, it wasn't necessarily just that. This project, they were stating, like they say in this report, that SUNY is the responding agency.
Right.
And that is totally different. So now it's
Right.
being said that, no, it is not SUNY, it is indeed us.
And that was
makes
the
a
impetus
difference.
to their email to you, which started this. I mean, the young lady from Camoin, I think, sent a note saying, our original assumption was that SUNY would respond, and now we know that that's not the case. So, it's just, I guess that, in addition to the cost, I think the process is troublesome to me because, people complain about one hand of government not knowing what the other hand of government is doing, and I think there needs to be better coordination, as Ariana just said, that the planning board should be sitting down with all of us. And maybe, I was told by somebody on the planning board that they have been talking with the fire chief about his concerns, and perhaps we need to be, because we don't work independently. And when I say we, I mean your department doesn't work, something happens, it's not like just the fire trucks show up. I mean, if it's a big thing, our people are blocking the track, you know what I mean? So, there needs to be a better coordination so that we present a united front as the emergency services division for the town and people of New Paltz.
Yeah.
And this is what your project is going to do to our capability to provide adequate safety to the people who pay the bills in New Paltz. So, and I think that's the way perhaps that it needs to be presented, or at least one of the ways. And the other troublesome thing to me, and as I look at this thing that was presented at Town Gown by the president of the college on December the 12th, there's a list here of how do you do due diligence, and you list all of the organizations that you talk to: the town board, the village board, the Department of Public Works, zoning board, town building department, the fire chief, town engineer, SUNY students, Ulster County Planning, New Paltz Town Wetlands Consultant, New York Environmental Protection, Ulster County Health Department, New Paltz Environmental Task Force. Where is the police department? Why wasn't anybody talking to the police department? Why wasn't anybody talking to the police commission? It's not like they're new to this community. They have some sense, and if they went to the town board or they were doing adequate due diligence, they should have known that they needed to come talk to the police department to get the answers that they needed with respect to how things work. So, I want us to be forceful in our objection to the way that this has transpired, and I want as much as we can to be united with, you know, the fire department, the emergency medical services, because we, you know, and I say we, but it's your department works in conjunction with all of the people in the other emergency services department in order to make sure that the people in this town are safe. And I believe that in order to do that, if you're going to need the bodies, then somebody's going to pay for them. And if you're going to dump 753 more units of housing here, it should be protected like everything else, and you should pay the taxes to do it. So,
You know, keep in mind also that just because there's 700 and some beds there, think about, especially with the college-age kids, their friends come up from the city, wherever they're from, you know, that two-bedroom house may have 6 people in it, you know, for the weekend or whatever the case may be. So it is a lot to consider.
well, you know, and the other thing too that and our, you know, Commissioner Finnegan mentioned last month. He says, think about it. You're going to have 763 units or whatever the total number is. Some of them are going to be faculty and staff and students. So you're going to have the students going out and partying, coming back and raising a ruckus, and the adults in the compound are going to be calling because of the noise. So, I mean, there's this mixed-use facility, which it seems to be, is just going to be problematic from everybody's standpoint. And then, you know, the other thing that they also mention is that they're going to put if you look at the documents here, they're going to have a security guard that's going to work 365, 24/7. I don't know. It's a rent-a-cop.
They said it was from 7 at night till 7 in the morning.
It's only overnight.
It's only overnight.
Day.
Oh, okay. And I mean, what did they do? It's like when you steal a pack of gum in a store and they've got security, they make you sit in the corner. They make you sit in the corner and wait till the real police come to do the job. So, I don't know.
I'm sorry, Randall, my wheels are turned,
Good.
okay? So I was thinking there's actually 2 considerations. One consideration would be wait until the independent fiscal impact is done so that we have some numbers to look at. But another consideration where you would have police, rescue squad, and fire talking all together with planning board so that they would know what the needs are. But now I'm thinking that yet another consideration would be police, fire, rescue squad, put together the bullets, get it to the planning board. There's a meeting at the end of the month before the independent fiscal analysis is done, because Wilmerate's not doing that. We're leading that, correct?
Oh, yeah, they're
Yeah.
paying for it.
Okay. So that would be our information with an independent fiscal analysis, and they could take your numbers and plop it in there. It's being independently done. It's not being done by Wilmerite. And that might prove to be very fruitful.
Okay.
I think you're right. I think
So the joint, all the
everyone should come up with these numbers, you know,
Like Ira.
this group here, like Ira did, yeah.
I was going to just,
So
Even
let
if
me-
it's a
so let me-
conservative
so
version.
let me
You can
ask
bump
the-
it up.
let
that's
me
what I
ask-
wanted to talk to you about.
Let me ask this question. Ira being conservative on those figures that he's come up with, this $10.5 million, do you think Do you think he should go back and
So it's
use
just-
the 18% and the 3% COLA and
There could be a couple, there could be, this is the minimum example, and this is a medium example, and this is a, you know, the higher end.
Yeah, well, this was a starting point for us to discuss. As I
Right.
said, it's very cheap. If you look at the notes, there's a lot of stuff that it doesn't include because I can't, you know, I can't get too picky how much a uniform is going to cost, how much a gun is going to
Right.
cost. But this is a starting point so we can get input, a reasonable starting point. As I said, it's a low estimate, and it's not my final estimate. This program will let me do whatever
Right.
I have to do.
Okay, well, we know that uniforms and meals were given. I would take, you know, a historical rounded-off figure and plop it in there, because that's going to be for each of 4. All right, so
All right,
that's
so-
got to go in there 4 times, 25 years. The cost to me, I think, most likely it will increment, but I wouldn't go there on uniforms and meals.
So, in other words, where I have, does not include uniforms, meals, and cleaning, the background checks...
Oh, I would put the cleaning in there.
Well, I was going to add the cleaning, because that's a yearly thing. They get a stipend every year for the cleaning.
Oh, yeah, I'd put that in there.
Yeah, it's just the background checks is a one-shot deal.
I wouldn't
So-
put that in there.
No, right, that and the psych exams and all the other
But
incentives.
then I would make a key that what I've calculated in is this amount of percentage and increases, this. But the percentage increases, because the way I'm looking at this schedule is that, I guess in the first years, there's a lot of steps. And then it's
Levels off.
and yes, that's what I'm looking at.
6 years' worth of steps.
Okay, so that's when I'd start adding in the 3%
You want, so in other words,
annually
change...
from like year number 7. You don't have to do it, because I'm just saying that
No.
as a suggestion,
See,
I would say.
The reason I did this way was to get input. If I had put
Okay.
9%, nobody would give me input. They'd say, what, are you crazy? No, I just, you know, this way I get...
Well, only
the
because,
chief
you know,
looks- no, the
another
chief looks at it.
aspect is that 10 years from now, the economy may have recovered. I mean, does everybody remember the very fruitful years of the 80s and the beginning of the 90s, where the town had money and got real fat, which made me work on the budget really, really hard last year? We're not there anymore, but maybe it'll come around again, because, you know, real estate and the economy and all those things are cyclical.
Well, do you
I'm going to
think
set this
as
budget
part-
at 3%, unless anybody wants to go higher or lower, or whatever, from year 7 on, after
Well,
the
some
steps,
years-
the
see-
mandatory contract.
Right, but what I'm saying is, like, some years, like, there could be nothing, but another, I mean, if they were to go, let's just say.
Yeah, I agree.
Five years go by and it's 0%, that eventually, somebody's going to get elected and come in and go, wham,
Yes, you're right.
right? So you're going to need to absorb it in your schedule, correct? It makes sense?
Yeah, no, it
So-
did. You know, like I said, I absorbed
Right.
it slightly, based upon
Yeah, I mean, you might as well account for the money
now.
somewhere.
Right, and if they have to, you're right, if they overpay it, that was why I took the minimum, because if they overpay us, there's going to be that point in time where they're going to be short.
Yes, that's
Right.
exactly my thinking.
Now,
So,
are
and
the
you're saying take the
benefits-
overhead and run it 18% cumulative,
18% on the retirement contribution.
just on the retirement?
Yes, and
Okay.
if you want to know the retirement contribution, you could probably call tomorrow and they could give you specifically the police amount out of that million.
So 18%, all right, that'll have to be a separate number, because this number, the number I have for benefits is a calculated number, and I'm using like 50%,
Right.
51%, 52% overall.
Well, some years the retirement will increase 12, some years it'll be 0, some years it'll be
That's why-
22, some years it'll be 33.
That's why I use 1, 2, 2.5, 3% increases overall. But I can do a calculation just to see what an 18% increase across the board for 25 years on retirement would be.
Now, do your figures for your overhead, I don't know whether it includes these, but does it include things like, you know, the sick leave and the holiday leave and all of that kind? I mean, are those things factored in there, and is that something that should be part of the calculation at all?
Those calculations, sick leave, holiday, whatever, all right, get calculated in the fact of, A, if it's comp time, there's no cost. If we have to fill it it's calculated in my overtime costs, which are included in the base salary. In other words, if Harry made, for example, forgetting the starting point, I didn't use it that way, let's go into year 6 or whatever for what I have for salaries. If Harry was making $7 an hour and he had to be on, and he made $12 an hour, I did these based upon actual payments, not, so in other words, I got everybody's actual salaries for the year, which would include overtime. So basically, it says in the salary, it includes your overtime. So that covers your, if you fill in, if you don't fill in, it doesn't. What the overhead basically covers is your FUTA, SUI, medical, EAU, pension, disability, that kind of stuff. You know, the normal burden that you have on salaries.
Okay. So, Gene, it's your suggestion that, did you were going to say something else? Go ahead.
I was, but I think I forgot it.
Okay.
Oh, all right. Well, you were, when you first made that statement,
Which one?
when you were asking Ira, were you making a reference to the possibility of buyouts? That at the end of the year, if there's time left over, you could get paid for your time. I can't remember if that's in the contract or not. I know some places do it and some places don't.
And the way I took to handle the buyouts is that it's included in part of sick leave. If you don't take it, you get the money. Or you're entitled to a certain percentage, like $25.
It's not per year.
Yeah, it's not per year. It's
Be paid for.
Oh, so it's when you leave?
It's when you leave.
Okay. Then, yeah, I wouldn't calculate.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. That's why I've made as many notes as I can, and that's why it is low.
It's going to be huge.
Huh? Yeah. Look at 2 years ago. 2 years ago, they put almost $600,000 into buyouts.
Right.
And that's where, you know, the money sat, you know, because however they calculated it, but that wasn't a true figure, if you remember. It was like somebody's guess. This year's budget, you got the true figures, thanks to Gene. We put in what it should be, and we didn't have, the taxpayers didn't have to pay for an inflated, you know, buyout thing.
So, Gene, is it, you know, part of my rush for this was I thought they had something pending before economic development, and they needed input before, so that's why we were rushing. So is it, am I hearing you correctly when you say it probably is best for us to wait for the planning board's fiscal impact statement, its independent impact statement, or should we move with all due speed now?
I'm throwing that on the table as two options. Either let the independent financial impact statement be done, but I'm starting to think that your input here, the planning board meeting for Monday, I believe, was canceled. Okay. So it would be the next planning board meeting, and I would ask them ahead of time, can we come, here's the items, have it ready for them, and say, here's the items, here's the impact. And we know that you're having an independent fiscal impact done, and we would like these considerations for our emergency services. These are public safety issues. Now, we don't mind if you come in, but we have to worry about the public safety, number one, of anyone living in a new project, and if it's majority of students, they all have parents somewhere, and we have to be worried about the public safety of our regular, our year-round residents.
Right.
Yeah.
And we need to be able to provide the public safety to the new project and to the existing kids off campus.
Right.
It's a lot of people.
Right.
It's a lot of people.
Yeah.
But, so I think that what you're asking is also partially with the IDA, and maybe you can clarify this, I don't know. Is the IDA waiting also for this financial impact analysis, the independent one, or can they move, because I think part of it is that
Right, that
at the last
question,
commission
because
meeting, you wanted to weigh into them as well, right?
I wanted to, well, actually not us per se, but I wanted to arm the town board,
Right.
the village board, and perhaps the planning board with our take on the impacts here, because we all knew that what they were saying
The town board has prepared statements.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, whether they were sent or not yet, I don't know. They had prepared statements. They may have gone
To the
directly-
IDA?
Yes,
Okay,
for
good.
the IDA, but Wilmerite had not made application to the IDA yet, so we couldn't
Send your
submit
stuff.
them. Right. But we had already started working on our major concerns, which is how it came up that we wanted the independent financial impact statement, not the one that was inclusive.
Okay. So let's move ahead. How do you think we should?
I have one question, something that came up to my mind right now, because I'm not familiar, I haven't attended the meetings. Has anybody asked, because when I went up online to that link and I saw all these beautiful things, and they got all these stores. So has anybody asked if Wilmerite intends to put stores or delis or bars or something along the line in that excess property?
There was talk about it, and they're
That's what I
not
thought.
going to.
Oh, okay, I know there was talk about it, and when you go up to see what they've done in other areas,
Right.
they got these nice little stores there. I mean, you know. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think that's an old thought, that it was gonna be mixed use.
Well, it says on the current website, I don't, if they're still going by their current website, that they're planning a convenient type deli, things, retail, but small scale retail, only really for their residents. So, you know, that to me means they could have a convenience store, they could have, you know, maybe a little bookstore, something that, you know, the kids need there. So there could definitely be retail things, which also has
I think
cash
that's
registers
it's a great
and
idea.
all kinds of other things going on there.
Sales tax revenue.
Plus, then you have to break that out from the tax exempt status. We had that problem with one of the other places that was supposed to be not-for-profit. Turned out he had 3 little things going in the back of the store, at the medical center, that were for-profit.
Oh, well.
So is it, how about, is the commission okay if me, Chief, and Ira sit down and work up our bullet kind of things, and then, or should we get a meeting together with, can you set up a meeting with your counterparts in all the other emergency areas, and then,
I'm thinking that we get together with them, ourselves, along with somebody from the rescue and fire department, to discuss the issue and collectively come up with what the impact's going to be.
I think that's a good idea.
And I think, I like your idea with saying it should be turned over to the planning board to be part of that discussion, and also with the private.
Turn it over and include these concerns in the independent fiscal impact statement. Otherwise, once it's prepared, Randall will come to the town board, I'm sure.
yes, for your additions.
I will reach
So
out.
do you, okay, so.
No, but then
you'll
that way,
set
the
that-
town board will know, the planning board will know, the impacts will be done, and then I'll find out for sure where we are with the independent fiscal impact.
I think you should definitely do that in terms of bullet points, and of course, I don't have an actual say in what you choose to do, but I think it would also be important, what you were talking about before, having everyone at the table to make that kind of collaborative decision. I think that this process should happen maybe first, and bring these concerns to the planning board and have them, organize this meeting, because I think unless we're all in the room saying what we believe, there could be, things can be misconstrued, information can be given. I mean, just like this, fiscal impact analysis, and the way that things are represented here ended up not being the case as of now. So I think, if everyone's in the room with Wilmerite, they won't really be able to say, oh, well, we talked to so-and-so and they said this, if they maybe didn't and maybe they did, but it's, it would be, the person would be there to speak for themselves, essentially.
Well.
But that could be a next step kind of thing, if you also choose.
What is the date this needs to be prepared by? That you said that there's another date?
Monday is the 11th.
It's the planning, well, the first thing would be for, I guess I could talk to Michael, who's the planning board chair,
my Kalamata.
Yeah, to get us on the next agenda. And I can set that up, then you can set up getting together with your counterparts, and I presume you want me and Ira there, or however you want to work, because Ira's the number guy. Because our things, you know, I mean, that, you know, that's the other aspect that, and I don't want to keep going because we got a couple of other things, and it is snowing. But there are two other things that are important, and I know that they've been talking to the fire department, and I think it's important for people to understand that the fire department that we have here in New Paltz is volunteer fire department.
But it doesn't, it's still, it costs money.
No,
And
but I'm talking personnel.
Need special equipment.
Yeah, they're going to need, but I'm talking about from a personnel perspective, a human capital perspective. Our fire department is a volunteer department, and that's great that you have guys who want to go out and risk their lives to save other people's burning homes. But if they get tired of doing it, their relationship is over. Mm-hmm. With our police officers, it's till death do us part. And there's no other artful way to say it. I mean, our guys work for us, and many of them, and the chief and I have talked about this, they start at maybe 18 or 19. They can retire out of the department at 20, after 20 years. And, you know, they could go on to live long, wonderful lives, and our contractual obligation to them, our responsibility and duty to them is to continue to pay for the benefits that they're entitled to have under the contract. So that continues until they leave the earth, and the taxpayers here pay for that. So, you know, this 25-year thing that you've done here could turn out to be 90 years, and it could be $10 gazillion.
Absolutely. You also have to remember that some of the benefits go past the person dying.
That's
because the way the contract reads, their beneficiaries, their children, their what, get it for a while after that.
Yeah.
And as I said, that's again, using conservative figures. All I'm saying, you know, what I'm trying to say, and I will make adjustments, there's a lot of things that you can't put in here because you don't know. I mean, I know how many people, for example, are getting Medicare reimbursement right now. Right? But it's not that great a figure. It's not going to have, but who knows what the impact is going to be about medical, you know, reimbursement and all this other good stuff. But I included in my overhead figure, my initial overhead figure, I included the Medicare reimbursement and the longevity for the people who are getting hospitalization, because my 2011 list shows me that Harry's retired and it's still costing us $17,000 for his hospitalization. Okay. And it's still costing us, which I object to the cost of it, but it's still costing us X, about $300 a month for, you know, his Medicare reimbursement. Mm-hmm. When you can get it a lot cheaper. As a matter of fact, I think Gene and the town board worked on that, where there are cheaper things than going through the plan that they have right now, which is reimbursing the guy $300 for a plan that should only cost $100.
Yeah, and then the final thing that is that, you know, and there's something in my gut that makes me feel that, you know, the Wilmerite will apply for this pilot, and should they be successful in getting it, there's this feeling that I have that as this pilot winds down and gets to the 20th year, the 23rd year, plans will be made to transfer that facility to the college, which means that we'll be double dipped again, and we will end up holding the bag for a facility that they've made their money off of and have gone knocking on the door in another community to start this process all over again, which, you know, as my grandmother says, if somebody comes a knocking at your door at 2 a.m., they're usually up to no good. So that's where we are. So you will reach out to your counterparts and then include me and Ira in that process, and I will reach out to Michael to make sure that we can try and get on their upcoming agenda for the next planning board meeting.
Do we have an idea of the date that there's going to be that? Because I just need to have a timeline.
It'll be
He just, you know what?
the next Monday.
They sent me something and they, because he canceled.
25th? Guessing?
Yeah, that would
2
make
weeks
sense,
later?
because it was supposed to be the 11th, and it's every other. And I just asked, the RFP was already sent out, but I'm assuming that they're gonna, that the whoever is the company that will be doing this will be working with the different entities, finding out costs and facts and figures anyway. I mean, unless they're just being, you know, handed a pile of budget sheets and working from that, I would assume that they're going to be speaking with people. Although the RFP already went out, the impact analysis has not been, you know, I don't even think it's begun, so.
Yeah, and I
don't know if a firm was even chosen, so.
Right, the person
Daniel,
still needs
yeah.
to be interviewed.
Right.
So I think
And
you're
the town,
good.
is the town board interviewing them, or is the planning board? Do you know?
I don't know.
Okay.
Okay, so is everybody okay with what we got? The chief's going to reach out to his counterparts and figure out when we can all get together, and me, him, and Ira, and emergency man, you know, and fire will sit down and hash out some bullets that we can then present to the planning board, outlining our concerns. I know that they've been talking to the fire chief
I believe so, yes.
a lot, so, you know, that would be good. Okay, anything else? Any other questions, comments? Lieutenant and police officer dispatch contract update. There is still no movement on the lieutenant's contract. Susan mentioned to me that they're trying to schedule it and work things out, but there is no movement. Police officers and dispatch contract, I believe they will have meetings beginning on the 20th of March, I think Susan said to me. So they will begin negotiations, I think, for the police officers and dispatch on the 20th of March.
Do you know if they're going to be talking about the lieutenant at all on that date as well?
No, it is just the police officer and dispatch. And I presume they're going to, that's, you know, it's a separate thing. So, you know, I've mentioned that you've raised the issue, and she, you know, she goes, I know, we get sidetracked, so, but there's stuff, but we just haven't sat down to work on it just yet, so that's where they are.
Gene, do you know if you got a copy of anything?
I could have done it last night, because I was out here at 10:30, which is really, really early.
Speaking to that? Thanks. I'm just wondering, because I know I spoke to the supervisor a couple months ago where she said that you did have something from Wallens and you just had to sit down and negotiate with the proposed lieutenant. Has there been any talk at all over the last couple months about it?
I have no knowledge of whatever that was.
Okay.
Anything else? That? Did you have any? The Audi sale, which I think is really, really exciting. You know, we've been trying to auction off this Audi that we snatched from a dealer, and it was used as the lieutenant's car. And we tried to auction it off, and we put it out to bid, and we didn't get any bids. And Chris Marks said, oh, why don't you use this thing that you know, I use, and he sent us a name. And the chief has reached out to, is her name Carol or Carolyn Fowler?
Carol is the first name, yes.
Carol.
Yeah.
She's some auto dealer, but the beauty of this is we send them a picture of the car and the VIN number, and they send us back a price. And they sent us back a price for this car of $10,050. And basically, they give us the money, they take the car, and we're done. So, as Ina Garten says, what could be better than that?
Well, we did.
Give it to the town board.
Right, right.
We did look at 3 options. We looked at a somewhat local dealer to look it over, see what they would offer. We talked to this company that Chris Marks found, and it's a federal vehicle, government, they purchase vehicles from different governments. And we also looked at an auction possibility through another company that puts anything on there. It's like an eBay almost, but for government property and vehicles. So we looked at all that, and there's a 12.5% cost that they receive for that, which taps quite a bit into the vehicle if you sell it for about the same amount. The one dealer that looked at it that would be willing to purchase it was less than that amount. So this amount was the highest bid price, and seems to be the easiest with the fact that, once the town approves it, we send them a copy of the title, they cut a check or money order. Once that's cleared, they then come pick up the vehicle. And the supervisor then signs the title and hands it over. So it seems to be the easiest way. It seems to be where we want it to be with purchase price. And it'll take away a lot of the headaches of people not liking us driving around in an Audi. So with that being said, I'm all for it. You're all for it.
No, I just want to make a motion that the chair asks the town board for authority to turn that vehicle over to whoever you said that the people were, for the amount of $10,050, you said?
Yeah, it's $10,050.
And to make sure that that money goes into the seized asset account.
Well, it has to.
It has to, because the vehicle
I
was...
know what you're saying, I'm just saying we have to make sure it goes into the seized asset account.
Okay. Was that a motion?
Yes.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Motion carries. I will ask, I don't have to. I will ask the town board to accept this and turn the car over to Carol. Is there any, do we have to do anything special for?
It's my understanding in communicating with her is that I told her, I think I CC'd you in the email to her. Her response is just, once it's done where the town approves it, we send a copy, and they'll cut the check or a money order. And like I said, once it clears, you want to make sure the check clears, then they'll come and pick the vehicle up.
Tell them to do certified check or money order. Both are considered cash.
If they want to pick it up on delivery, deliver the check and take the car, I'll let them know that. The only thing...
There's no 12%, right?
No, that's a different company.
It's the government one.
Yeah, correct. This is,
Right.
we receive the check, they take the car. There's no fees.
Okay.
The other thing, the only thing I have to do is have the emergency equipment removed along with the radios and stuff, which would probably have Nycomco
Okay.
too.
So
installed it.
they'll need to give you.
I'll do that ahead of time.
Do you give them advance notice, or do you?
I'm going to take care of that now. If the town says, yes, we're getting rid of it, I didn't want to remove anything because it still can be used on occasion. So nothing's been removed. Now
So,
that,
is it as simple as me saying that the commission has recommended the sale at this price of $10.50 and do it, or do I need
want to
to?
check with Rosanna, because I actually knew about this, that Chris, and it might have been brought up at the town board, only that Chris had suggested it to the police department. We may not have made a motion, but if we've already made a motion, we're good to go. But I don't remember making a motion. But I
Okay.
did hear about it at the town board, so we were informed that you were going to look into it. But I never heard the dollar amount, so I bet we didn't.
Okay, so basically I need to make a formal request to you
Yep.
to do it, so it's got to be at your next scheduled meeting?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
and the other company that I'm referring to, the auction, was a contact that Jeff Logan forwarded to me. So that was the one in case he asks.
Okay.
The only other thing I'd like to add, seeing that we're talking about seized account and seized property and what have you, there is another thing that I think that would be wonderful to do at a town board meeting. would be that I spoke with Frank Flutico, the undersheriff. The funds that we're going to be getting from the Urgent team, we're a part of the organization for Urgent. They have now the ability to cut some money to us, $5,000 from seized money that has been recovered through this team, along with the startup money of $1,500 that the town initially put out when we first started to be a member of the Urgent, and Urgent was created. So it's $6,500. Again, that money is supposed to go back into the seized account. However, they would like, the undersheriff would like to come to a board meeting and present the check to the supervisor and the board. I think it would be great if you were there and I were there, or the whole commission for that matter. But if you could put us on the agenda, I will let Frank Flutico know. But that, I think, would be a good venue for it.
So why don't we try and do both of those at the same meeting? The car, so we'll get 2 checks.
Do you know when that meeting, next meeting would be?
The 21st? It's usually, you do the 1st and 3rd Thursdays, is that what you do?
3rd and 4th.
3rd and 4th.
This is the first, right? It's the first.
The 4th one, I think, is the day before Good Friday.
21st is the 3rd, and the 28th is the 4th Thursday in this month. So your next meeting is the 21st.
Well, we have a joint meeting on the 18th if you'd like to join the party.
Can we
We
put,
want to get some stuff.
can we be put first on the agenda? If we can be put first on the agenda on the 18th, we can get in and out.
Can we, well,
That doesn't mean that.
I'd aim for the 3rd Thursday.
okay, the 3rd Thursday. So it's the 21st, so it'll be a busy week. The contract on the 20th, and then their meeting on the 21st. Yeah, if we could be put, yeah, I'll ask to be put on the agenda early in your meeting so that we don't have to sit through stuff and we can,
Well, the undersheriff will be here too to present, so if we can do it at the beginning.
We might do it during public comment.
okay. Do it during public comment. Okay, okay. All right.
I'm sorry.
Anything else on the Audi?
Don't put that in the paper.
Okay. I just thought of something else under new business, and it's a quickie thing, and it's a result of emails that I think we all got. But let's go to Shivertown Road discussion. Do you want to tell us about that real quick?
Well, we received some complaints for that road. We bend, but now the road is marked with the 5-ton limit. We've been doing step details out there. We get complaints on speed and overweight trucks and what have you. Some of the issues were school buses going through, which I've addressed with the transportation for the high school, for the school district, so that's been resolved. That's been just going on for years, so even though the signs were posted, it was kind of routine to still drive down the road, but that has since been addressed, and I don't think has been any other issue. The other issue now we're dealing with is just when trucks go through. So it just depends on manpower. We have 2 people working a shift, so we can't always be on Shivertown Road, but we do details out there, and we'll continue to. As the weather breaks and the side of the road gets clear, we'll start posting our sign out there again, the digital board like we've done, reminding people that, it's no through traffic. It'll stand out a little bit more than a white sign on a post, and hopefully within a little time, the change will come. But it's nice that the sign's actually posted there, so we can enforce it, where before we couldn't. So I know it's a continued effort and it's a continued issue, and we'll continue to do our details.
I would like to ask permission to amend the agenda for one quick item that was brought up. So can I move? I guess I can.
You don't need it. You got other matters on the agenda. Just tack it on there.
No, yeah. Announcements.
One. The Easter egg hunt that's put on by the Youth Center, the Easter egg hunt that's put on with the Youth Center. Jim Tinger does a great job, obviously, over the years. I believe this is going to be our 26th, I believe, because I think last year was the 25th anniversary of the Easter egg hunt. But it's going to take place on the 30th of March.
Easter is the 31st.
Yes, it's the Saturday right before Easter, and it's going to take place by Huguenot Street, over by the Reformed Church in that area, as it's been in the last couple of years.
My other matter was the crossing guard. And I don't know if you all are received the email, but the crossing guard is a vacancy. Again, he was let go. And do you have any idea whether...
We have, I believe we've received 3 applications. The school district put an ad in the local paper advertising for another crossing guard, or a couple. This way we have some backup as well. In the past, we only had 1. So we did receive, I believe, 3 people dropping off resumes. Once I receive the resumes, because I will take care of the backgrounds, the school district will pay for any fingerprinting that needs to be done if they're not already school employees, which I don't have any idea who they are at this point. But I look forward to meeting with them and looking at their resume. I will set up an interview process with the school, seeing that it's really, although I'm overseeing the program, taking care of the training aspect of it, the town is technically paying them through the school district's money. It's kind of a big circle with us all being involved, but the school district will be part of the process in selecting the crossing guard, and then once that is done, we'll take care of training them and getting them out there to cross the kids.
Can I ask that? You had mentioned with the Shivertown Road, maybe like when the weather gets a little bit better, getting a flashing sign out there, just reminding people, to keep the trucks out of there or whatever. Maybe there's a chance, at least when we don't have the crossing guard, that you can get a schools open, drive slowly sign up there. It would really be great.
We have done that.
Issues over there.
Yeah, we've done that last year. We actually, when the crossing guard was there, as soon as everything is clear, we do put it out there, and we will, because when it's not being used, we always put it there. We even have the SUNY police recently this past year. Chief DeGatkin bought an identical sign, so we actually work together too, where he'll put his sign out to help if we can't. So we'll continue to do that. So when
and just one last comment about that. I did see the sign over on Lincoln Road, like over by Lincoln.
Lincoln, yeah.
And I'm just wondering if there's a chance that we could get that sign closer over to 299, because that's really where the traffic is, and the 4 really weird corners and the kids walking across the big street with the lights.
Well, I think the location that we put it there for, more so than the intersection, because the intersection is controlled by the crosswalks and what have you. So we're dealing more so with the crossing coming up. The problem if we put it too close to that, it's where we put it by Lincoln Place, it actually gets some sunlight because it's solar powered, solar recharged. So it doesn't last very long if we park it up under the trees, because we've had it up further and it doesn't last very long.
Like I saw it over by Starbucks, like next to P&G's before. Yep. So I was just thinking maybe.
You mean like right at the intersection coming off of Main?
Right, if we could just kind of move it up a couple blocks by the middle school, or an additional one up that way. Just people getting off the throughway, have no idea there's a school there. Lots of little kids.
Yeah, we can move it around, and actually we like getting the input from different areas where people think that they can be used. I'm thinking of more if you're coming towards 299, if you have it closer to the school, the trees there, it doesn't last long. But where you're talking about coming off of Main Street, as long as there's room where we can put it so that we don't block the sidewalk, then we can put it there. So we might have to talk to the owner of the parking lot there if we stick it in their parking lot maybe a little bit. So we'll see.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Anything else? Any other announcements? Recognizing that there are discipline matters that we need to discuss. The chair will entertain a motion to go
One
into.
second, please. On the other matters, I have a question. I want to go back on one thing, which I want to get clarified in my own mind. The $5,000 grant we got for the canine, is that grant hopefully specifically earmarked for canine activities?
Yes.
So it can't go, theoretically, it can't go to general funds or for the, anybody else that may be short. It has to be used, the problem is we keep hearing about the canine expense. I mean, we got the $5,000 grant, that grant should go towards the manipulation of the canine. I just want to be sure that that grant has to be earmarked for canines so that they can't put it someplace else.
Well, I can tell you that the email the chief sent me was very specific about what the money, the bulletproof vest for Rex, vet bills, food, stuff for the handler, and things like, it was stuff like that. So it was clearly specifically earmarked for
We
Rex
have
and his
to,
hand.
we actually had to put a list together of what the money was going to be spent on in order to get it. And we didn't choose what it was. They actually called us up and said, there's funds here. Actually, it was from a grant, I guess some funds that was left over from 2006. I don't know how the state works with that stuff, but they said they had funds there available, and they earmarked it for a canine for us, for equipment, and they said we have to put a list together to meet that amount, because even if we are $10 short, then they won't approve the grant, so they say, you have this grant, show us what you're going to buy. So once we do that, then they do it. I know Teresa already spoke with bookkeeping to make sure there's a line set up in the budget for adjustment so that the money can go into a budget line that we can draw from.
And the only other thing, and I don't know whether or not anybody knows the answer to it, but I mean, again, I got the email about the incident in Highland, which of course is not our business. But I do know that our officers had been going through the schools and things of that nature. We are doing everything that we possibly can to make sure that our officers and their sidearms don't accidentally discharge in a school. And
We will continue to do what we've been doing.
speak to them.
We will continue to do the patrols that we've been doing, as well as the state police and the sheriff's department. We train and use safety and precautions every day, no matter if I'm sitting here, walking down the hall, wherever. I cannot speak on what occurred there.
Absolutely.
I just wish them all, the best in working through this. However, we do take precautions in not allowing something like this to happen.
Do we have special ammo that can be used in schools that perhaps?
No, that wouldn't have changed anything here either. It's our weapons are with us, our sidearms are with us for preserving the safety of life and property. But it is, we don't change rounds for different locations where we may be. It's just the weapon stays holstered and best intend to use it.
Do you have something?
I don't know what they do up in Holland. No, but-
Can I go back to the canine grant for a minute?
If it's money, it's G.
Hi. Okay. Well, no, because I think I can help. So you had to make a list.
I checked it twice.
Okay,
Just-
so food, the vet, and I hate to do this on television, but I'm going to do it anyway. So when there is an officer who takes care of the canine all the time, takes him to the vet and all of that. I have not seen vet bills come through the voucher process, so I'm making an assumption here that that's all part of what we give them the money for, as then the food as well.
Correct. Now, what has been done in the past is 50% of the vet bills sometimes get donated from the
Okay.
the vet, as well as sometimes the food. And I know this year, I don't think the food has been donated as in the past. And I don't think that the officer Knoth has been putting in for food. I think he's just been paying for it himself.
Okay. So how much is the canine vest?
Now you're asking me questions. I don't have the list in front of me.
Okay.
I think it was like $600 and some dollars, or maybe, yeah, I think it's like $600 and some dollars, if I remember correctly by looking at this sheet.
Did you budget for the vest?
We did not. We just found out that we have the grant, so we now are putting a list together. Teresa contacted payroll bookkeeper to set up a line for the grant money coming in.
Do you know how much the annual stipend is for the K-9 officer?
2 overtime hours per month.
Okay,
I
so
think
you
it's
don't
like
have a dollar amount
$8,900.
here.
No, I don't have
It's like
a dollar.
$8,900.
Fine. So here's what I was thinking, is that because you can't put it in seized assets,
No.
because it's K-9. You can't put it in a K-9 grant line as revenue, but also because we pull that money directly out of your personnel. I mean, there's a possibility you could deposit it there. Kind of offsets your cost a little bit.
We can't use it for present costs. Grant money isn't used to offset what your budget. So it's additional to what your budget is. It's not, can't be used for paying overtime or salaries. It's specific for equipment or care of the K-9.
Did you apply for this back in 2006?
I don't think so.
Did they give you any paperwork as to why they're awarding it to you, or you're still waiting for that after you give them the list?
I'm still waiting for that. The only thing we received was an email and a online processing of entering for it.
Okay. I'll wait for the paperwork.
Chief, my question is, in terms of the stipend that he receives for the care of the K-9, now that's put into payroll. It's not a payroll expense, it's a stipend expense, it's a contractual expense.
It's pulled out of payroll.
It is in a payroll line.
It is
Pulled out of payroll.
They pull it, the money comes out of payroll. Yeah, no, what I'm saying is that the money comes out of payroll, but it's not a payroll expense, it's a stipend expense, it should be a contractual expense. And I'm just wondering if it was a contractual expense, if we could use the money for that, as opposed to, for his care of the K-9 he takes home. That's all I was questioning. I know it comes out of payroll.
I'll wait for the paper, because I know I'll get a copy in my mailbox.
Okay. To jump back to the Park Point thing real quick, I also have an article that I didn't have enough to make copies of that you all might find interesting. It relates to fire, and it was an article in the Poughkeepsie Journal, and it lists colleges and how they make their contributions and pay their fair share to the communities that they live in. And I don't know how accurate this is, and it's for fire districts, and I think SUNY New Paltz didn't come in too good. So you all might want to take a look at that. Recognizing that there are personnel matters to deal with, the chair will entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Motion go to executive session.
I seconded. It's just what, somebody else to make a motion tonight.
All in favor? Aye. All right. Thank you. Becky, I'll email you about what comes out executive session, and we're good to go. Yep.
You could forward this to me, right?
Yes. Do you want it to?
This is a list of a breakdown of what the reports are that are in the packet.